Am I sharing this with you guys now?
You are.
Okay, and I'm gonna put it in slideshow mode, I guess.
From the beginning.
Oh, yeah. All right. So here's your agenda in case you're an anxious person like me and you like to know what's coming. So Cindy, would you like to start us?
Sure. So, you know, these kinds of gatherings are always good for organizations. We do it in education. They do it in a lot of different fields. Sometimes in retreats, they're tough and uncomfortable conversations, but agents of change, like we are, don't shy away from those. We embrace them, and we really do some good work when we are able to set aside time and just kind of get together. As we start this, you know, I'll ask you, it's a Saturday, and like any other day, I'm sure we have lots of things on our mind. You're lucky if you don't. But what can you let go of just for this time together? And then what can you choose to remain open about? It's important in your mind. Can you push through that discomfort and stay open and ask questions like, why does this make me feel uncomfortable? And what can I learn from this experience? And it's interesting that we're having this retreat now because it's also a time of reflection. And in my school, we do the ABCs for the last day of school. And yesterday was our reflection day. And we asked the students in kindergarten through fifth grade, what happened this year? What obstacles did you overcome? And what learning did you have in the class and in life? And I think we can sort of take a lesson from that. What kind of lessons can we learn from this that we can put into our work on the board? So I'm really excited for what Katie and Angela have brought to us. They're two great leaders. And I'm excited to be a part of all of this. So I'll turn it over to them.
All right, I'll go ahead and start. Good morning, everybody. As you can see on the agenda, we're going to start with an icebreaker, and Katie and I were trying to determine what to do. And Katie, I'm going to go with just a fun favorite. Most people have played it. It should be pretty simple with people coming up with it with responses. So we'll do the two truths and an untruth. Because I thought about it, you know, we don't know a lot about each other. So this might give us an opportunity, at least we can walk away with two things that we know about one another as we just, you know, work together more closely to serve our community. So if you could think about two things about yourself, if you haven't played this, that are true about you, and then think of one thing that's not the truth or a lie. And we will guess which one of those things is an untruth. Okay, so everybody can kind of think about that a minute, and I will start the process. You all know my name. My name is Angela Brooks, and I am the third of 12 children. I also like to purchase items for scrapbooking, and I grow my own fruit and vegetables indoors at home. And I'll repeat those because I know people are thinking about, you know, kind of what they're going to say. So I'm the third oldest of 12 children. I like to purchase items for scrapbooking, and what was the last thing I said? And then I also grow my own fruit and vegetables indoors at home.
We're supposed to guess the lie.
Well, you guess the lie, and then after I finish, whoever goes will then determine who's the next person to respond. Well, we do it that way to give everybody. So hearing, if you all are ready, which one of those is not true about me? Is a lie. Untruth, I like to say.
I would say that you don't grow your own food and vegetables indoors.
Is there any other guesses? All right. Well, I will let you know that I do. I grow my own fruit and vegetables at home. I have an indoor tower garden where I'm able to grow with no dirt, and I absolutely love it. But I am not the third oldest of 12 children. My parents had 6, so I'm number 3 of 6. So kind of in the middle. All right. So I'm going to call upon Katie to go
That's
next.
mean, that's mean. Okay, I have, okay. The first one is that I lived and worked as a ranch hand in Montana for a month when I was in my 20s. The second one is that I am a published poet. And the third is that I was in a country music video.
So you were in a movie, in a video?
Uh-huh.
I don't think that's true.
Does anybody else have a guess?
Montana ranch hand, you're not.
Scott, you're right. I was in a country music video. And I am a published poet. So Scott, you're right. I wish I was that outdoorsy.
I didn't mean that as offense. I just,
What you think of me?
I was just guessing.
You're next though.
I'm next now.
Mhm,
You're
mhm.
opening my mouth. Oh boy, I'm just trying to pick. Well, let me think. There's so many things. Just a second.
That can be simple.
Yeah. And all right, so I worked as a carny, which is a carnival worker. Growing up, I was in a made-for-TV movie series in the 70s on regular TV. And my dad was a kind and gentle social worker as his profession.
I'm going to guess father may have not been a social worker.
Yeah, I made it too easy.
Something about his occupation.
The kind and gentle part, right? Yeah, no, he was a prison warden.
Okay.
I think I actually knew that. I think you said that one time.
I should have made that a truth. It's all too obvious. Not that I have lots of issues, but there might be some from there. But yeah, I was in the truths were, yeah, I worked as a carnival operator, a carny, and hung out through high school that way. You would not recognize me, I don't think. And I was in a made-for-TV series with Elizabeth Montgomery from Bewitched and Hal Holbrook back in the day.
What's it called?
Oh.
What was it called?
Awakening Land. It was just on like I'd forgotten, ABC or something. So, but
I'll have to look it up.
That's cool.
I magnified my part in it depending on the day and what I had to tell the kids in school, because I wanted to impress them that I was quite the actor and that I knew Donnie and Marie Osmond, of course.
Did you want to be an actor? Did you
No.
used to?
No, my mother signed me up for everything growing up.
Wow.
So that was, Kevin already went, right? No, Kevin. Or,
All right. I have one brother and 2 sisters. I was president of student council in high school,
of course.
and I can milk a cow.
You didn't have one brother and two sisters.
What's that?
You did not have you don't have one brother and two sisters.
That is correct. That is an untruth. I have one sister.
Okay.
All right, Eric, you're next.
Okay.
But I can milk a cow.
I believe that part.
Growing up on a dairy farm, I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I am the second youngest of 9. I have a twin. I love seafood. I'm an avid Cardinal baseball goer. And also I have 10 grandchildren.
You have, what was the last thing?
10 grandchildren.
Okay. Mhm.
You're not a twin.
I am a twin.
Ooh. Mm.
You don't love seafood.
I do not love seafood. I am the second youngest of 9. I have a sister younger than I am. Then I have a twin sister. I'm not big on Cardinals. I'm just not a big Cardinal fan. And I do have 10 grandchildren. Well, 8 grandchildren. 2 of my sons both have twins. And I have an adopted son who has 2 children. So they're included in our 8 grandchildren. So I have 10. 2 sets of twins, and both sets are 1 year and 3 months old. And the other one is 1 year and 5 months old. So when they're here, it's a madhouse.
All right, that's Cindy or Mayor Welch.
I'll go. I was a tournament fighter in karate. I've been to the Great Wall of China, and I'm a licensed rescue diver.
Ooh.
Tournament karate fighter, been to the Great Wall of China, licensed rescue diver.
You are not a
Licensed rescue
I
diver.
just-
I can't even swim.
Yeah, no black women don't get their hair wet.
That's a bias, Eric.
Knowing you would guess that.
All right, Mayor Welch, it's you.
Okay. I was a church organist during grade school, high school, and college. I grew up in Chicago, and my cousin was Michael Jackson's manager.
Can you repeat them?
I was a church organist in grade school, high school, and college. I grew up in Chicago, and my cousin was Michael Jackson's manager.
You didn't grow up in Chicago.
That's what I thought.
Right. I do not. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a Steelers fan. Pittsburgh.
Oh.
All right.
But I
well,
was a
thank-
church organist.
Angela, do we
Yeah.
have a second? Are we doing a second one,
No,
Angela?
I was gonna just hold it. Maybe we'll do it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on. I think most people, if you have taken part in any kind of, I don't know, group discussions that could be emotional or, I hate the word triggering because people use it too much, but, you know, that it's nice to have an agreement, how we listen, how we speak, how we interact. And so we wanted to just kind of come up with that together, generate that. I'm going to try and type in if I can on the, if I can get the right screen for myself, I'm going to try and type in what we come up with in the chat. So that's more for you guys to generate, and I'll work on the administrative piece of this. Mm.
I think one
Oh.
thing is to stay engaged.
Can I ask, was the police chief not invited?
He is invited. He emailed us and said he wasn't going to be able to
Okay.
come.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I was curious about that.
I'd say don't judge.
I'm sorry, Katie, were you gonna?
You know, I was trying to type it in the chat, but I'm having trouble doing that. So I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, I'm entering them in. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Angela.
I don't know, maybe a basic one for everybody. I think we've done this in meetings, but maybe raise our hand if we want to speak. It might, help us with just some organization. Use the feature, raise hand feature.
Anybody else? What are other thoughts?
I would say that we are honest and should be honest and transparent.
Like that. Sometimes I've heard in some groups that they use a tool like something like ouch or something. If something hurts, like you can let somebody know if they have hurt you in some way, or it feels hurtful. I don't know if that's important, but I just wanted to ask that as a question. Maybe that's honesty and transparency.
I think oops and ouch are really good ones because someone might not intentionally hurt a feeling. That's a oops, but you have to state that was an ouch.
Okay. Anybody else have something that we're overlooking?
I think it's important. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think we can expect there be some uncomfortableness involved. I think, it's just kind of the nature of what we're just trying to accomplish that, we should expect that we'd be uncomfortable and that, we may not agree or there may not be resolution on things. So that kind of comes to.
Well, I think there's like a fear right now of people being open and honest or saying the wrong thing, right? So it's that fear to have the discussion, to move forward. Is that true? So I don't know if that goes with open and honest.
Right. So maybe part of what is really hard for all of us that is good, and I don't know if this is it's part of an agreement, is to maybe take some risks.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back. So the fears, I know we just said, be afraid to take risks. Scott, can you say just a little bit more about what you shared with fear?
Well, I think a lot's been put out from every direction about the cancel culture, that you said the wrong thing and it gets magnified on on the media everywhere we can look. And so some of us, we want to be the best citizens and say the right thing all the time. And sometimes you're afraid that, you know, you realize you got to grow. You're afraid you haven't incorporated that growth, you know, kept up with where you should be, I guess.
Can I
You
say,
know what
I'm sorry, fear is natural.
how do we talk about some of these things? We're afraid to talk about these things, to say the wrong thing. So.
And when you're in a public position, what you say gets taken out of context, a sentence is blown up, and so you tend to be quiet. You have to be quiet because it's, you know, things are just, people look for something to quote you on that either agrees or disagrees with them. And so there is a tendency to be quiet.
Especially with people pleasers like I might try to be.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. You know, you mentioned, Mayor, the position, and I think even us as a board, you know, we have to sometimes think about what it is we're saying and sharing, and to whom. So. But are there other things, I guess, for this, this conversation that we can?
I have my hand raised, actually.
Okay.
Not
Using the
electronically.
hand raised tool.
I see it, yes.
That's kind of what I meant by don't judge. Those last two comments, because I think that there is a lot of fear, because if you keep everything to yourself and you don't speak out, sometimes you never learn what is an oops or an ouch for someone else.
True.
I mean, I have stuck my foot in my mouth numerous times. And I typically learn from those instances. And I think that as a society, we have kind of gone away from that because of and you guys are exactly right. Or this team is that is a faux pas that I am trying to correct. Using the term "you guys," even though my daughter does it all the time. So, you know, this group, I think that's really important that we speak. You know, all these things are important. Open and honest. Don't judge. If you say something that's inappropriate, you know, you can call somebody out on it without being negative about it. You can explain why it's hurtful, or why it affects you a certain way. So
I think it takes a lot of trust to be able to do that. And so that's why something like today is important, I think, for our group. Because really when we have trust and we have a history together, then it's much easier for any of us to give each other the benefit of the doubt. Like, I know Angela really didn't mean to hurt my feelings, but I could say, Angela, when you said that hurt me. But there's this basis of trust under that. So that I'm hopeful that the more that we engage with one another, that trust will be built, and that however that spills into our community will be a really positive thing. Angela, what do you think? Should we kind of move on? Because we have some big stuff ahead.
I think so. And, you know, people can look at the chat. I'll just repeat what we've shared. Stay engaged. Don't judge. Be honest. Raise your hand if you want to speak. Be transparent. Express oops and ouch. Expect to feel uncomfortable. And knowing the resolution may not come today. Fear is natural to growth, but talk anyway. Even if we may say something wrong, our position may cause us to pause, but we are working to develop trust.
All right. So the next piece, I know that I had missed our PCB regular meeting, but it came up, that meeting came up after the Chauvin verdict. And I think Cindy suggested this might be a good forum to try to engage with that topic a little bit here in our retreat. Angela and I, when we met to plan this, she had a couple really good questions to lead us. So Angela, if you want to get started.
I will. Well, one of the things that I thought about is the fact that, misfortune and violence often receive top headlines, no matter of all the good that takes place in any community. And was thinking, how COVID-19 may have just kind of uncovered some things that are reality for some people, and just allowed for some things to be more at the forefront. So that's something that comes to mind. And I thought about the fact that, it was 3 weeks ago, about on a Tuesday, that the jury found Officer Derek Chauvin guilty of the 3 things in which he was charged. And I personally started thinking about many things, including this group, our team, our board, and wondered if, because we meet on Tuesday, what would have happened if we had have met that particular day. I'm just gonna, that was just kind of going through my mind, because we are charged with something that is very important, very serious. And I just think we have an opportunity just to be able to just kind of, help facilitate, some growth or change, even if it's small, within our community. And so that's something that I thought about. And I just wondered, when, national news hits, when things happen around media and policing, violence or race, how do we feel? And just wanted to kind of start there with feedback, and you can share response for the verdict, just whatever you want to. But, I think about the fact, I know I felt awful, during the time, and just with the entire ordeal, just seeing, someone's life just being, lost. And like I said, I just started thinking about, how do we feel when things like that happen, because they do impact us, especially in the roles in which we're in, serving a community.
Kevin, it looks like your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, a couple things on it. Number one, I totally agreed with the verdict. I was a little concerned on the reaction on some of the folks that talked about the verdict, saying that this was just a one-off, that, it really, I think it was meaningful. I think it set a precedent that hadn't been set necessarily before. But I think its importance may have been glossed over. No one is even talking about it anymore. The other thing that concerned me, maybe they are, I don't know, but not in I just don't see it that much anymore, and it's not something you can't forget about it. The other thing is an event that happened, I don't know exactly when, but right around there was the tragedy of the shooting in, I think it was in Ohio, where it was a knife fight, and the person that had the knife was shot and killed. And there seemed to be some criticism on the police taking that kind of action. So, in conjunction with the Chauvin verdict, you have that event that occurred, and the public's reaction, I think, was all over the place. So there's a lot of polarization going on. And I think people are afraid to, the police have a job to do. I just think that there's a mixed message.
In the media, there's a mixed message. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
I think there's a mixed message, not just in the media, but I think just over America, period. And I think where most African Americans stand with this. How they were in uproar about the shooting of the young lady with the knife, because if you Google, I can't pay a lot of attention to Google, but there are so many instances where you will have your Caucasian men and women with knives, with guns, and they're never shot, or not never, but it seems like ever shot. But when it comes to shooting the African Americans, like it always happens, you have different instances where people will attack police, spit on them, try to run them over, and they come out and they go home. But if an African American person did that, they don't go home. So I think that's what the uproar was. Even with the shooting of the girl, she did have a knife and she was fighting another young lady and possibly about to stab her. So I think in that instance, the police did what they had to do. But the uproar is that they always do what they have to do when it comes to African American, and they don't do when it comes to white America. I didn't mean to have silence everywhere.
No,
No.
I'm thinking about that. And what I was thinking about was the history of that too. So it's not just like, oh, this is what we might observe in the past year or 2 years. There's a very long history of this. And that's what all people bring to how they respond to things, is also the history.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I was feeling relief that the verdict was the correct verdict. But then immediately I was wondering, kind of part of what all of you are saying, what next? How do we move forward? How do we avoid getting cynical and thinking we're just going to go from one crisis to the next and never really coming up with a positive action, something to move us in a better direction? Yeah, we got the verdict correct here. I think that was hopefully obvious to more and more people. But how do we, what should we do? What should we do next? And that's kind of what in some of these other meetings, even at Webster with the university, you know, I hear all the things that we wished hadn't happened. And then where do we go from here? How do we define an agenda?
It's interesting. I think that there's like what's the response in a public sphere? How can things like, Webster Grove city government respond or be a part of change? But then I also, when you said that, Scott, what came up for me was something like, I just don't think the amount of pain is so much that people don't feel heard. So I don't, this could be a bias on my part, it probably is, but I feel like white people are like, okay, well, let's fix it. But what I also feel like from a trauma perspective is people they don't want to fix things until they feel heard and understood. But that's more of an emotional and a more of like almost like a spiritual act than an act of government, but they do overlap, or they influence each other.
Something that comes to my mind regarding this is that there's a systematic problem, and it's going to take systematic change for things to be different. One thing, and then the other thing, healing also would need to take place. Among definitely African Americans and people that do feel that there is inequality. There is a difference in how people are treated when they engage with the police, no matter what the infraction or what was done. That just seems to be very obvious to the experience. So, definitely, I'm definitely one for, wanting to figure out the next steps, what we can do next, but knowing that, until some things change within, in our society in general, but also within police departments and the interaction with the community, things are going to remain, pretty much the same. But I do think about the fact that, what thoughts come to mind about our own community. when we, because I think that's where we have the opportunity to be able to work in collaboration, to, listen to the community, and we are the community. So really listening, among our own group, and then listening, with those that we have been put in place to serve, and then work in conjunction with the police department, obviously, to think about some things that we can do to bring that healing and bring some change within our own community, because that's where we can make a difference.
As a white woman who thought that I understood what it meant to be a Black woman because of friendships that I have, I think Derek Chauvin was an awakening. And I believe that it has to come from inside, from your heart, or something inside you, that we as a group can't mandate how people think. This past week, I had a book club with they were all white women my age who all fancy ourselves fairly liberal. And we had a really good discussion about our unconscious bias. And I think the thing that maybe we don't think about, because we're always in a mode of what can we do, is that we don't think about how people's heads are being changed by what happened. I think Derek Chauvin, the whole issue of watching what happened with him, the way in which he was murdered, has a huge impact on people like me, just what it makes us think about now. So I think, I'm a little slower than, and I'm slower, and I tend to think through things a lot. And I think we can't dismiss that.
I definitely think that you are right. And I want to say George Floyd's name. I want to get his name out there, because that's the person.
That's what I meant, George Floyd.
No,
yes,
no, no,
thank you.
No, I'm saying, because I don't think I said it earlier. That's why I wanted to be able to say that. But I think you're right. We definitely cannot mandate the way that people feel. And one of the things that I saw after George Floyd was killed within our community, I did see people that took a stand. I saw people that were out. I saw families out in different places, holding signs or, waving, wanting to engage in discussion. And I thought that all was very positive, because you mentioned the awakening. And it just really seemed, I agree with you, that some people, there was some different action that took place.
Mm-hmm.
Cindy, you've been quiet.
I lost internet for a second there. I don't know what happened. That was, I have very intense feelings about what happened to George Floyd. Watching that murder take place, and people trying to engage in saving his life. He's a human being. And I agree with Eric very much. It's so astounding to me that that people get really confused when the Black community has this outcry, a public outcry about these murders, because it doesn't. When a Black person is picked up by the police, it seems like more times than it should be, their life is ended. And I wonder, with that young girl who was doing something wrong, and who was totally dangerous, was there another way to stop her actions, knowing she was young? I mean, obviously she is a teenager, but did she have to die? I know when the police pull their guns, they're supposed to learn to shoot to kill, but they have lots of little weapons and tools on their belts. Does it always have to end in death? And if it does, if certain actions have to end in death, then we certainly should see a lot of non-Black and brown people dying as well. And I know the police have a job, and I understand that, but I feel like over time, police officers, some have accidentally learned that Black individuals are more dangerous and deadly than white individuals. And that's why we see so many deaths. And how can we reverse that thinking? You know, it's like the mayor said, we can't see what's happening in people's heads, but we certainly need to retrain the thinking, because what's happening now is Black and brown people, when they get stopped by the police, automatically think that their life may end. And that creates a reaction, a natural reaction, a panic, and the likelihood of them being harmed goes up exponentially. So I think there's a lot of training that needs to happen. I don't think that police officers should shoot to kill always. I just think there's other ways to apprehend someone who is not obeying the law. You know, I'm a principal. I certainly don't suspend every human being that comes in and does something, you know, inappropriate in the building. It's not the same thing, but I mean, the reaction has to match the crime. And George Floyd didn't do anything that he needed to die. And certainly something's wrong with Derek Chauvin anyway, to stand on somebody's neck, kneel on somebody's neck like that. But, you know, that, I think that's an extreme case, and there is something inherently wrong with that individual. But I think that police officers need more than online training, and that's what their training comes from. I think they need dialogue training where they communicate with other people.
And the sad thing is that the George Floyd situation has happened hundreds of times. You know, most of them have not been caught on camera. And that's the fear of especially Black men, but the Black family, is that it happened to George Floyd, it can happen to me or to my children. And it has been an occurring situation over years where Black men were having knees on their neck, you know. And it's a constant thing, but this time it was only visualized. So I think the community needs to understand the cry that this is not just a one-time event, you know, but this is happening forever.
And I think what the last people have shared is that it is traumatizing. Because as you say, you know, you think about it can happen to me, you know, if I'm stopped, it can happen to one of my loved one. And, you know, we can say many things about COVID. There have been a lot of things that have not, you know, that have occurred, but people were home and they were still, you know, and to Eric's point, you know, it was videotaped and people were able to, you know, it was played over and over again. You know, I know I've had, you know, just physical reactions. It really is difficult. It was difficult watching it and I had to turn it off. It was difficult watching the trial. I had to turn it off, but it was important that I did see, you know, what was taking place, especially with the trial. So that does bring about a lot of emotional and physical response that people do carry around. And you know, to Cindy's point also, so that when you're in a situation, you're involved with interaction with a police officer, these things come to your mind. It comes to mind that although it's you know, alleged, you know, $20 bill or alleged something else, my tags are wrong, I may not go home. And it does cause people to maybe react in a way that others may not react. When you are living, this is things that we're living, people live day to day, and it doesn't go away. You know, it just doesn't go away. And it's, you know, you think about it more as you see more and more events take place. You become aware of those.
And I wonder how we can help people people should not fear the police. And I think more and more there are groups that are fearing the police. The police are there, they have a job, but they are also there to help and to serve. And that kind of, I think that's the kind of change we want to bring about through systems change, is that the police are our friends. It's so silly sounding, but right now, I think a lot of people just fear the police. And I don't think that's why we have police officers.
I have to tell you, growing up in a rural area, I was scared to death of the police, scared to death of them, because the kind of police officers that you have today that are causing havoc to people and to Black people were the kind of police officers I grew up with. Out in the country, those guys who thought they were supreme with their guns was frightening. And so I understand that fear from my perspective. And that's why I was kind of hopeful with this public engagement, because I think the only way you get over that is to build some relationships with police officers where you see that maybe they're human, or in a government position, you make sure that the police officers that you have in your community are not those guys.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
When I was growing up, I had not so much a fear, but more a respect for the police when I was a kid growing up. And I'm just wondering, is the fear that you had in the rural area that you grew up in, was there a fear that when you encountered a police that you were not going to go home alive? Or was your fear that, see, there's a difference in the fear.
My fear was that they would put me in jail. They would put me in a prison. They would lock me up and I'd be stuck for the rest of my life in some horrible place. That was my fear, is that I would end up in the local jail. And not that they would, well, in many cases, maybe they would hurt me, especially as a woman, that they might hurt me. But more, it was a fear of being locked up. And so I understand your fear is a fear of not going home. It's different.
It's like a fear that you'll do the wrong thing, you'll make the wrong move, and
Yes.
it'll be misinterpreted and you'll die. Kevin's got his hand up.
Yeah, I think Eric's point and your point, Cindy, is really important for us to embrace that I haven't before. It's when I'm even today, if I pull out of my subdivision and there's a police officer behind me, there is a level of anxiety. Am I doing something wrong? I look at my speedometer. Am I going too fast, or am I going to do something that makes him stop me or her stop me? So, but that is a completely different fear than what's happening in the Black and brown community. I would be lying if I said I totally understood it, because I don't. I see it, but on the same token, I don't really trust the media either. Are they not reporting all the events that occur to maybe white people? We see, the offenses that are occurring, and though they're wrong to Black and brown folks, but are we not seeing what may be occurring to other races, Asians, Indians, whatever, and I have an inherent distrust of the media. I don't trust what they say anymore. And that's a really hard position to be in when you're trying to really come to grips with what's going on in society in general.
The media plays a big role in how they do present events and things. Where I was growing up, I lived right on the borderline of the Central West End and North St. Louis. And anytime there was a crime that would happen in the area that I lived in, If there was a black on black crime, they would call it North St. Louis. If something happened with white on black or white on white, it was called Central West End. So it plays, you know, the media plays a big role, a big importance in that also, how they portray things.
And I think it's the important part, to me, the important, you know, element of this group is to, we can't make sure, you know, we don't have that much control, but we can at least provide some guidance and some advice to our own police department in really having them take a look at themselves in the mirror and say, okay, how are we? And I, you know, I wish Chief Curtis was able to join us, because I think, you know, the culture in the Webster Groves Police Department, I think, has changed over the years. And it's because of him. But when he retires, you know, at some point, which he will, I want to make sure that that culture is still progresses. You know, I think that the Webster Groves Police Department, nobody's perfect, and Chief Curtis will say that. But I think that they, you know, they deserve a lot of credit, or Chief Curtis deserves a lot of credit, I think, in setting forth the culture to listen and to try to make things better for everyone.
Does everybody agree the culture's changed a lot in the police? I'm curious.
What's interesting, the first thing that came to my mind is, how would we know?
Yeah.
As a community? So that's my question. You know, I appreciate what you said, Kevin, and I'm glad things have changed, but you know, how, I'm not sure how the community would know. You know, how would I, as a, you know, a Black woman, know that it's changed, you know, just about the, you know, so that's something that came to my mind. I'm not
Also,
sure, you know, for us, you know, just being a community group, you know, just kind of.
I wonder too, sometimes I think I've brought this up before, that Angela, your point is great, that how would we know, and how would Black people in particular in our community know? And then the second thing is, even if our Webster Groves police were perfect, whatever that means, it is still a great influence on our community how nationally these things play out. So that we can't separate ourselves and say, you know, but we're good, because this is still looming pretty big up here. And that's, we don't separate ourselves out, but it is an influence.
But how do you, as Katie Miller, attack that situation? How do you control what's going on nationally? What we can do is we can start it at the grassroots level and hope that it spreads to other communities.
Right.
We have no control what happens in Kansas City or in New York or in San Francisco, California.
Right. That is for sure true. I guess that I think about our job as what we are doing and we could do better is listening. And the reason I say we could do it better is just, I don't know if people know we're listening or that we're here to listen. But I think listening and letting people know more what we are doing. And we'll probably move into that discussion at you know, later on today. I know, Angela, what do you think? I was like, I want to be respectful of the discussion, but I also want to be respectful of people's time.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to what we're going to discuss. I don't know if you want to do your
Sure.
relaxation, you know.
Yeah, so I think this came up, if you all don't mind. You know, we've talked a lot about trauma and how trauma impacts the work that we do and the people that we work with. And this book, can you guys see this book if I hold it up here? I was introduced to this book in the past month. It's called My Grandmother's Hands by Resma Menachem, and he is a trauma therapist. He's a Black man. He was in Afghanistan, as I like a trauma therapist there for 2 years. And he talks, this is very perfect for us. He talks about racialized trauma and the pathway to mending our hearts and bodies, Black bodies, white bodies, and police bodies. So as we discuss this, and maybe even coming into this discussion today, you may have felt nervous, apprehensive in your body. And that's the beginning actually of a trauma response. So he says, I'm just going to read it. Many African Americans know trauma intimately from their own nervous systems, from the experience of people they love, and most often from both. But African Americans are not alone in this. A different but equally real form of racialized trauma lives in the bodies of most white Americans. And a third, often deeply toxic type of racialized trauma lives and breathes in the bodies of many of America's law enforcement officers. Trauma is never a personal failing. It is never something a person can choose. It is always something that happens to someone. So I think that's just a really important point. So his answer, and Kevin, this is really along the lines of what you're talking about, is like, where do we begin? And he says, oops, sorry. We begin with our own bodies. So we begin by being aware of where we have stress, trauma, tension, constriction in our own bodies. So if you guys don't mind, this is kind of vulnerable. If you just, can we take a minute, maybe close your eyes? And I hope you're sitting in a comfortable chair. Is everybody okay with this? If you're not okay with it, just don't do it. I'm okay with that too. Sit in a comfortable chair and take a few breaths. This is a little meditation. Feel the air move in and out of your body. Notice the experience of the chair against your back. Notice the sensation of your feet on the ground. Starting with the top of your head, slowly scan your body from top to bottom. Pay attention to each part as you slowly move your attention downward. Notice where there is pain or discomfort, where there is constriction, and where there is relaxation or expansiveness. First, move slowly down your forehead, then through your face, then down your neck. Follow your attention as it moves across the tops of your shoulders, onto your shoulder blades, and down your torso, and into and down your arms. Continue to descend down your torso and arms through your hips, into your hands. Experience your attention spreading into your fingers and then out your fingertips. Continue moving down your legs, through your knees, down to your ankles. Pay attention to your major joints, your ankles, your knees, hips, wrists, elbows, shoulders. These are spots where energy often gets blocked. If you feel the urge to move any of these, feel free to do so. Follow your attention into your feet and down into your toes, then into the bottoms of your feet. Take a moment to notice where your soles meet the ground. Take another deep breath or two. And as you're ready, you can bring your attention back to the room. So that's really just a simple grounding exercise. But the reason it's important is that when we have these hard discussions, we get triggered into our fight or flight response. And what we're doing is deactivating our flight or fight response, coming back into our prefrontal cortex. So that's the most important thing that we can do when we start feeling uncomfortable, or we start getting that feeling that we might not be able to communicate or listen from sort of our higher selves. So hopefully, I don't think any of us were at that point, but we might have had a little bit of that triggered in our discussion. So thank you. All right. Angela, this is you.
Okay. Well, I want to go back. I really like Kevin's point of just sharing the fact that there's been a lot of change and improvement in the police department. And I just wonder how we can, it's good to know, first of all, because that's not something I would have known. And I just wonder how we're able to communicate that and the things that the progress that is happening within our community. And I think it just really pointed us right back to, you know, what we're charged to do. So I thank you for that, Kevin. I think Cindy shared this with us, the 5 questions to ensure meaningful engagement. And, you know, the first one, and we wanted to take a few minutes to kind of talk about some of these, just what we think our goal, what are our goals for engagement? We are a police and community engagement board. You know, so what are our goals for engagement? You know, I think these were really key in that it would help us to really establish these. And I think moving forward, once we have kind of this framework, it may help us in decision making, help, you know, kind of organize some of the things that we want to do. You know, so the first one, you know, what are our goals of engagement? And this may be something, you know, we already know, but we just want to have just some dialogue about what are our goals?
I think we want to just assure that positive engagement happens regularly. I guess that's the way I see it. Just positive engagement is regularly happening in an authentic way.
Yeah, I definitely think that's important. I think about just engagement all the way around. You know, we are, you know, obviously we interact with the police department. You know, our role is also to interact with the community. So I see that engagement as twofold. You know, we're engaging with, and that's why I really like the fact that we've had officers coming to our meetings. We are trying to, you know, and it was wonderful through the Webster opportunity to engage with the students that we may now have some type of collaboration with the university. And I think all those are things that really support this, you know, our overall goal to be able to ensure that we have some positive and regular engagement. Someone said earlier, I think it was you, Mayor, about relationships. You only develop relationships through engaging with one another. You know, that's just kind of a part of that. So thank you. And Kevin, your hand is up.
I think that the absolute, one of the primary goals of this group is to communicate to the, I don't know how to say this. It's building it's rebuilding or building. I don't know if it was even there to begin with certain elements of the, you know, certain folks in the community, the Black and brown folks, and but building the trust between the community and the police department. I mean, do all members of our community trust the Webster Groves Police Department? That they're doing the right thing, that they're not engaging differently with one group of people versus another group of people. So, yeah. You know, and I don't want to say rebuilding that trust because I don't know. I mean, I've lived here 30 plus years, but was there a trust when the police, when a police officer shows up at your house, because most of the time it's a traumatic event that's occurring, and that's why they're called to begin with, right? So is there relief when the police show up, or is there fear when the police show up? And is that dependent on the color of your skin? To me, that's our goal.
Yeah.
is to build the trust between the community and the police department.
And how do we do that?
Well, that's a goal. So I think what is the number 4 is probably where we're going to get into that.
Does anybody else have anything for the first one? And we can always go back and include others, but just so that we can get through these, because we're getting a little short on time.
Quickly, can I just say, sometimes just having that regular visibility for trust building, the regular interaction. I know in my job, primary care, I often say, bringing you in for physical exam sometimes is a matter of building that relationship. So I think just getting police officers and community people all across the community side by side talking to one another, and that gets rid of, or decreases rather, some of the fear, and it normalizes the experience because you're having it in a different context rather than in the context of a stop or something else, and you're having a doctor-patient interaction and a wellness visit as opposed to an unwellness visit. So to me, I find a correlation there that really helps in both manners for trust building. So I think regular interaction is part of our goal of engagement.
And, you know, I think that was part of the reason for forming this commission, was that you would end up finding ways that you can pull the police into all of the neighborhoods everywhere in this community, you know, through events, getting them out of the car, talking to people in the community, whether you're in the schools or in the neighborhoods. And I thought part of our job was to be the conduit for making that happen.
Can we quickly say who we're going to engage? Who are we engaging? Because this may be a short one and we can continue. So who are we engaging?
Everybody.
Okay. So who would everybody include?
Everybody, neighborhoods, organizations, schools, groups, any place where you have people in the community, to get them out engaging.
Kevin?
I agree, Jerry, yes, but I also disagree a little bit. I think that we need to start with the Black and brown community, because that's where, to me, that's where most of the fear and the mistrust is. And then we can't do we can probably touch a lot of folks, but I think that we need to focus some attention there. Is that where the true mistrust and issues are? Maybe I'm wrong.
I agree with you. I think the first area to engage is the area with the most fractured relationship. And that is with the Black and brown community.
And that's not saying that my community, because I don't, we do have Black and brown residents in our community, real near to us. But that's not saying that the other parts of the community are not important. You know, don't get me wrong there, but I think that we need to really focus our priorities where we're going to have the largest immediate impact. That's kind of my opinion.
You know, it might be helpful also if we could ask for the areas of the city where the police engage the most. You know, where do they have the most calls? You know, I mean, one of the biggest calls they have is for domestic assaults. Where is that happening? so that we know where in the community the police typically are. And I think Cindy's got a good point. We go for fractured folks first, but I think it would be useful for us to know where else in the community there are issues, because we don't know that. I don't know that.
Any other additions for right now for with whom we want to engage? And like I said, we can always go back. If not, what is being done to educate the audience so that it can engage in a meaningful way? You know, kind of back to, you know, how are we, I think, Katie, you mentioned earlier, how are we sharing what it is we're doing? You know, how are we engaging them? Because, you know, there's one thing because everybody from the community does not attend our meetings. So how are we getting word out even about the progress that we are having so that people know that the board has been established and that progress is happening? You know, I think it's something that we can work on. So I think so far we've developed, you know, the survey so people can at least see that there is, you know, something that has been developed to get thoughts, you know, from our community. You know, what else? What are we doing or what has been done so far, Kevin?
In the regular communications between the city and the folks, whether it be the what's it called, the Webster community oh shoot, it's the monthly, the Friday page, the Friday page, the articles that I think are in the Webster Kirkwood Times on a monthly basis, those kinds of things. I read them every week. The PCEB is never mentioned. Or, you know, unless there's a specific issue, it's never mentioned. And I think that there's still a lot of people in the community don't even know we exist.
I agree.
So I think we need to start spreading the word that number one, we exist and this is what we're doing. And I think it's important for us to, I mean, the mission statement, I think we need to come up, personally, I think we need to come up with a mission, vision, and values. And I think that those need to be communicated to the public. I think that's a starting point. But I think it needs to be regularly publicized that we exist and this is what we're doing. This is when our meetings are, everyone's invited. We would love more participation, blah, 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 blah.
There's I think this is great because we're going in the direction of where we will be headed shortly, which is goals, sort of like short term and then big dream goals. But yes, I think we should talk more about what you're saying, Kevin.
What about we spend a bit on number 5? What will be done to respond to input in order to show respect for those who do participate? And we maybe think about those that have already participated. What have we done?
I love that question because I had never really thought about that before.
I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry. I looked at, Cindy sent out the survey on the 27th of April, and there were only 30. I thought there were 59. There was only 39 responses. So number one, I think we need to get this out to more people to try to get people to respond. But I was looking through the goals or some of the comments that people had made, and maybe an idea is to discuss a couple of those during our meetings. Picking some of those goals out and publicly discussing them. These are ideas from those that responded to the survey. These are some ideas that these folks had.
I agree that should be a regular agenda item on each meeting that we say, we've received input. These are common things that have come up this month.
Thank you.
And we can say that each month, that is something we're doing.
Yeah.
We're hearing, getting the input. You're going to bring it in. We're going to look at it. We're going to discuss it.
Yeah, I agree.
And not just the comments, but I think the general feeling, where are people sitting on all these different questions that we ask them? As far as how the community wants the police department to police, and then we can get the police department engaged and say, this is why this will or won't work, or may not work. That's all part of to me, that's all part of the discussion and engagement.
Well, we can put the survey in the Friday page this coming week. We'll make sure it gets there. Okay, I'll make sure it gets in.
Kevin, to your point on that, I think if we do those things, it definitely will show, like with number 4, that people are heard. They're actually heard when they, learn that or hear that some of the things in which they have communicated, there's being discussion about, and it's being, just about would help as well. Yeah. Thank you all. Katie, if we're gonna stick with the time that we said, should we move?
Oh, we do need to move on. Yes. Okay. So now there are two kind of parts of the goal setting, like I said. So based on our discussion of engagement, we've started this already. What are some short-term measurable goals for the police community engagement board? So we just heard, this is very measurable. Starting immediately, if we make sure on our agenda that we're using some of the feedback that we receive and then discussing that it is not only something that we should be doing, but it's also a way to show respect for the folks that are engaging with us. So again, more thoughts on short-term measurable goals for us?
I think, go ahead, Kevin. I think
you go ahead, Cindy. You
okay.
first.
I think if we look at that survey data, the responses, some of it is very quantitative, and we can watch how that, if more people are filling it out, how that changes over time or does not change. And I think that's an important discussion item in our meetings, that, how is that needle moving over time?
Another thing is I actually asked this to be part of the agenda, but Wesley Bell, the prosecuting attorney for St. Louis County, and we'll probably talk about it in the upcoming meeting. Mm-hmm. But the St. Louis County Police Department, in conjunction with, I think, Normandy School District and another school district, I can't remember which one, but they did role playing with some of the students. And so the police were the folks that were stopped in the traffic situation, and then the students were acting as the police. So it was a role-playing situation.
That must have been great.
The response was amazing. They were just, the students were distracted, and then all of a sudden they turned back around and a gun was pointed at them, and the student reacted to say, "Oh my gosh, this happened so quickly." There was a lot of awareness that was built during that, and the police and the students really had a real positive time together, really, and there was a good positive reaction. So something like that, and Chief Curtis responded already, saying that it would have to be approved by the school district, but I think those are the kinds of things that we can maybe do short term. Is see if we can get those kinds of things between, and maybe even do it, Scott, with the Webster University students. Do the same thing on campus sometime.
Absolutely. We should do it.
I love it.
I like that idea. And maybe in general, maybe our police department can provide some type of training on what to do when stopped. Because if you're hearing straight from the police department on, what to do, that takes away a lot of wonder, and it kind of has some accountability. We've heard this from you. The other thing that the Wesley Bell's office also did, they are also putting on case reviews. And I thought that was interesting as well, that we might be able to share with the police department on just some things that took place so that the community, can kind of know, what took place, the response and why. And I think in Chief Curtis and his, I guess some of the follow-up or dialogue with some of the students talked about, this is what we did, why we did. And I think some of those things will help kind of just spread the word out about expectations and what we have to do. We talked earlier about the fact that police are here to do a job. We know that they have to do that, and maybe having that more understanding, would also be helpful.
Is it possible to have, I mean, now that things are, thankfully being opened up again a little bit, is it possible to have, the PCEB and the police department sponsor some kind of event in North Webster at one of the parks to have refreshments and maybe have some music, some kind of event, so that I'm just throwing it out there, where it's almost like a meet and greet, but it's outside at a park and
Great. I think the police department ought to do that.
Good idea. I like it.
Mhm.
We should maybe set a deadline for the goal coming up.
I think fall. The fall of the year.
Let's put it out
early
there. And
fall is a great time to have that, because the weather is typically beautiful in September. That's our driest month. So
I think that's a great idea.
Is there anything that we could or want to be doing to raise awareness about that we even exist? Like I was thinking, like, do we want to see if we can get an article in the Webster Kirkwood Times, or have maybe we could have a regular something quarterly in the Webster Kirkwood Times? I know that's just one avenue. And I know that we've avoided Facebook, but I also wonder about enhancing whatever we have going on the web.
I think that's a great idea. You have to tell your own story, or others will tell it for you or not tell it. It could be a what's happening with the PCEB. We can give updates, tips.
Part of the issue is that this is one of about 15 boards and commissions that the city has. And so pulling out one, as opposed to the Historic Preservation Commission or another commission, is really difficult. But we can think about some ways in which we can start to engage better. I mean, we can use the Friday page a bit and trying to get some articles into that monthly community piece. I think we can start to do some of that.
Mayor, I wonder if it would be possible for the boards to work together to sponsor something or have something, instead of separately.
Well, that's a really good idea, Angela, that maybe we can start to connect some of the boards together. I'm thinking, for example, with Parks and Recreation and PCEB doing something together in North Webster. That's a really good idea and something we should start thinking about. And maybe that could be a simple goal, is to try to collaborate with one or more boards and commissions to further our mission. And I can think about that because there probably are some ways that we could do some really interesting and cool things together.
I would love to see the community and the police board in a basketball game or softball game.
This is what I mean. This would be very cool. Maybe we pick out another board maybe a board that has some really weak people on it and engage them in some sort of basketball game. I mean, we could
did
do that.
kickball one time it was like kickball for cancer. That was pretty easy. I'm not real sporty and I could do
Yeah,
that.
kickball would be fun.
Yeah.
But I think you hit on something that might get us out in the community better. That would be fun, and that would get us some visibility. Oh, cool.
Like
I
that.
think people would enjoy watching, coming out to see something like that.
The police versus the police community engagement board. Oh,
That's true
or
though.
just-
People
or just the
engage with
community.
fun. People
With
engage
fun.
with fun and humor. And they instead, I mean, not that we don't want to, we don't want to deny the weight of it, but to get people engaged. Yeah.
we issue some sort of challenge to some other board. The
Well,
Arts
okay.
Commission.
Well, we may be going on we may be kind of overlapping. What are long-term big goals? So I think we should just open it up. Goals in general. Go big or go small, whatever's comfortable.
I think it's great if you did it versus other boards, but also I was referring to the police board, the police playing a game against some of the community young people.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
I mean, and maybe not just they can do some, how we do field day with kids. You have all of these different challenges, and then you have the tug of war. We always like when the firefighters come and go up against the kids on the tug of war when we have field day. So that kind of stuff is always, kids love it, and everybody gets a kick out of it.
And you build relationships. That's where it is.
Remember
I
what I'm
wonder if would Given School be a good resource to parents? I'm thinking about different
That big
generations
field.
of people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd go for Ivory Crockett Field there and see what we could do. Because Givens technically isn't in Webster Groves.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's in Rock Hill.
Maybe you could combine something like that with the event that I was talking about, maybe at Ivory Crockett. So,
Mhm.
you
We
know,
have it. We
kind of
have it.
combine the two, have an activity and a meet and greet.
Mhm.
Mhm. Cool.
And if it works well, then expand it, go to Edgar Road and, or
Mhm.
Blackburn. You could do Blackburn because there's all kinds of fields there, and expand it throughout the community. I think we start in North Webster and then we move it throughout the community.
This is like really pie in the sky kind of, but like one of my hopes, I don't know if it's a goal, would be that our community is wanting to be engaged at our monthly meeting, be present, not because something bad has happened, but because we are doing such good work that it's meaningful to be there,
I can tell you from someone who's been around for decades, having the public come to public meetings is something that just doesn't happen. I mean, we have council meetings with something controversial and 10 people show up. So, you have to just get out there and get away from the meetings because it's a great idea, Katie, but
too
You're not gonna
idealistic.
But maybe some of that work can happen in an event.
That's exactly it. In an event, that's where you need to go out to the public to get people to engage. So, yeah.
I like that. Yeah, we go to them, and we want to hear
Very fun.
what you have to say.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody have anything? Because we're bumping up against our time. Anything that they want to share, anything we didn't get to, anything that's important for another retreat in the future?
I think, can we discuss some of this for our next PCB meeting? I mean, can we select something and kind of begin to flesh it out a little bit more. I want to keep the energy going on some of this.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we've come up with our agenda items you were looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think these are great. I mean, can we start planning that fall event now?
Yeah, plan the fall event. How are we going to discuss and incorporate input and respond to it monthly?
I think we need to improve our mission statement and then look at our vision and values.
Okay.
I think that's a starting point. We need to start. I mean, it's going to take a while to come up with it. Those are hard. Those are
Yeah.
hard things to do.
Mhm.
So we'll begin to look at the calendar, and maybe at the next meeting, if we have a couple of the police officers on, it'll be great. Just as an aside, last week at Mayors for Meals, there's a new police officer. His name is Tory Rogers. He's a Black fellow, young, sort of youngish. And in the process of standing in the rain collecting items for Mayors for Meals, we came up with Officer Mr. Rogers in the neighborhood. And I'm telling you, the ideas we had about him getting in the neighborhood and engaging with people was just terrific. I'm in search of a red cardigan with a zipper up the front that will fit this large man. But you know, there's something there that we could do with him too.
Yes.
We had talked at the last meeting about getting the survey out to the other board members.
Yes.
We
Is
haven't
that
done
going?
that. No,
Okay.
we need to do that.
Update on that.
Cindy, maybe you and I need to talk about that and how we can make that happen.
Okay.
Shall we do that?
Yes.
Because we can make that happen through our through Jennifer Conrad. So
Okay.
let's see what we can do. But you and I need to talk about that.
I would love to do this kind of thing once a year at a minimum.
You mean today's kind of thing?
What?
What we did today, is that what you're saying?
Yes. I'm
I
sorry.
agree.
Yes.
I thought
Yes.
Katie
yes,
and
yes,
Angela did a great job.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank
Wow.
you.
And I was
Thank you.
apprehensive coming into it.
Aw.
So-
Well,
so-
I do want to say, Mayor Welch, what you just said about the red sweater and the zip up, you know, that I'm beating my drum about trauma. And so when people feel, you know, who can calm us down more than Mr. Rogers? Do you know what I mean? And
Yes.
when people feel safe, they respond in healthy ways. When they don't feel safe, they respond in unhealthy ways. So we are part of creating a sense of safety, emotional and physical safety in our community. We're doing that. The police are doing that. Each one of us can do that in all our interactions, you know? I have a little closing. Are we ready for that? Angela, are we ready for that? Where'd Angela go?
I'm here. I think so. All minds.
Okay, do you mind? Do you bear with me on another little, it's a little meditation. Okay. You don't have to close your eyes. We all suffer at times from the efforts to study something instead of living it, or from the effort to fix or advise rather than to listen and to hold. But as the theologian Paul Tillich puts it, the first duty of love is to listen. When I think of the times I have truly listened in my life, to the sea's endless lapping, to the sighs of my grandmother when she thought no one was near, to the pains of others that I have caused, it is receiving these simple truths that has made me a better man. So often when we refuse to listen, we become obsessed with remaking the world in our own image, rather than opening the spirit within us to the spirit of what is. At the deepest level, ours is not to make ourselves heard, but to be still enough to hear. As the Native American elder Sackage Henderson says, to truly listen is to risk being changed forever. That's it.
Oh, God.
That's awesome. Thank you
Love
all.
it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Wonderful
Katie and
job.
Angela, for putting this together. It was very
Amazing.
Great
great
job.
stuff.
Thanks,
Great job.
guys. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Great meeting, great retreat.
Awesome.
All right.
See you in a couple of weeks, right?
Happy weekend.
Good job. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate you all.
Have a great weekend.
You too.